Two great talents, both in the prime of their careers, both on long-term deals, and now both among the most likely to be shipped out before this year's deadline. That's just for the Vancouver Canucks fans. CJ, what are you hearing from around the league that landed them at the top of your first trade bait board of the season?
Well, let's start here. I mean, this is an entirely unique situation. Vancouver's coming off a 109-point season, getting all the way to Game 7 of the second-round playoffs last year, obviously with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson being big parts of that success. And they're not a team looking to rebuild. This isn't the Calgary Flames of a year ago trading off a bunch of players that are pending UFAs. This is, two cornerstone pieces that they're, have at least engaged in meaningful trade discussions with other teams. Now, it still doesn't remain to be seen at this point in time. Does one of them get moved? Do both of them get moved? Maybe neither of them get moved. I think there's still a decision there from Vancouver management, but certainly at this point, we can tell you that they have had discussions. They're getting a good feel for what the value in the marketplace at this moment in time is for these two players. And once they gather that information, they have a decision to make or decisions to make, depending on where things land.
Speaking of value, when a team has this caliber of player that they're looking to move, they can usually tell teams, hey, if we don't get a good offer, we're just going to keep them. But do the Canucks have that choice anymore? Or are they in a position where they have to take the best offer, even if it's not fair market value?
Well, they certainly have that choice. But in this case, what I think makes it unique and interesting is that it's a choice we all will have known about. I mean, quite often when a team doesn't do something, we don't really know about it, right? I mean, the contract you don't sign, the trade you don't make, quite often isn't such a matter of public discussion. But here, of course, with Pettersson and Miller, so much discussion about, perhaps them not gelling, not a lot of harmony in the dressing room, not a positive work environment, perhaps for either of them. There is potentially a cost to not doing something, because if you hold on to both players beyond the trade deadline, and if the Canucks season doesn't get on the rails here, and that's another part of this discussion we're having is Vancouver has won 4 games in the last month. And that team ultimately misses the playoffs, a team that does have high expectation, that does want to be in the mix for the Stanley Cup. I think that there is a potential cost there. And so that's part of what has to be managed here is really the management deciding, can these guys work together? Can they get through whatever is perhaps inhibited each of their individual seasons so far? And can the Canucks as an organization move forward with both of them? And if the answer is not, then obviously a trade or multiple trades have to be considered.
Miller's got a full no move right now. Pettersson's no move doesn't kick into July the 1st. How do you think that affects what happens between now and the deadline?
Well, it's a big factor, right? I mean, I think all things being equal, you'd probably land on JT Miller as the player you're trading away. No, certainly disrespect to him, but he's the older player. I think you're going to gamble that the better years are still ahead of Pettersson just because he is in a younger situation. But the fact that Miller holds some cards here and some significant cards can't be discounted. And, at this point, I don't have any sense the Canucks have approached his agent about him waiving that no movement clause. But, players have to earn that sort of clause in their contract. And so typically they don't do it lightly. Whereas Elias Pettersson's shoes, his no movement clause doesn't kick in until July 1st. So there's nowhere the Canucks can't trade him, but perhaps bigger risk in making a deal for him, because obviously ever since he signed that big extension last March, his production has fallen off significantly. You might be trading him not certainly at his best in terms of optics and value, but certainly I think as a 26-year-old who's got a 100-point season already on his resume, he's someone who could wouldn't surprise anyone to see him have some greater days ahead. So that is a dynamic at play here, and one in which the Canucks management has to work through.
From one win away from the conference final to battling for a playoff spot and in jeopardy of losing 2 of their best players, it's been a huge fall from grace for the Vancouver Canucks.